Really dokily. Well, might just get into it. Well, Ollie obviously sends his regards in the chat. He can't make it tonight, but he's left it in our hands. So officially, welcome everyone to tonight's Carn Mor virtual tasting. I'm back after I left you in Ollie's hands last week while I helped Scott out with the Bushmills event we held in Melbourne. I think we're planning to have more exciting events like that coming up this year, and I know we just announced some Heaven Hill tastings around the country as well, which is super exciting. So hopefully I'll get to see some of you guys there. But we're here to talk Scotch tonight. We're being joined by Simon Spier, owner of Select Scotch Whisky and importer and distributor of a really fun number of brands, including I think Cooper's Choice, Whiskey Cellar, and of course Carn Mor and some of the other Morrison brands. He's also the other side of the coin to Graham Wright, who we had at our first tasting of the year at the Cadenheads one. Together they own Spier and Wright Bar in Adelaide, which I'm looking forward to hopefully popping in for a drink.
You better.
Soon. I know. Well, last time you were closed, you wouldn't even open the bar for me. It was so rude.
We were probably drinking somewhere else that
night. Yeah, no, I'm super excited, super keen. But before we get drumming, it's the usual housekeeping. We always recommend having 6 glasses so you can go back and compare each dram if you have glassware for it. Please don't drive after the tasting. Only a few of these whiskies are cask strength, but responsible drinking is always encouraged. All of our tastings are recorded as well for those who want to watch them back or those unable to join us tonight. And up on our website is an article as well on the history of the brand. So if you want to read up on it rather than watch it back, it'll be available in our featured brand section of the website. And please, we love to see your tasting notes and questions in the chat. I will do my best to get answers for all of them if possible. But I think that's enough dallying from me. Let's, chat some whiskey. If you wanted to start us off, Simon, with the first whiskey of the night, the Linkwood, and
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the history of Carn Mor and obviously intertwined with the Morrison family.
Absolutely. So, yeah, by all means, guys, sip away on the first one, which is this Linkwood 10-year-old fully matured and first fill bourbon. Probably come across Linkwood and part of the Diageo stable. Much loved by blenders for a long, long time, with good reason. Fruity and cereal notes with lots of texture, which is great. But thank you for the intro, Emma. So, yeah, the Morrison family are kind of one of the long-term stalwarts of the Scotch industry. So 5th generation now, or they claim. You go back a few generations, it gets a bit grey. You got to skip which side of the family we're talking about. But they're most famous for Stanley P. Morrison kind of acquiring the Bourbon distillery for a bargain back in the day. And they did really well out of it. There's a lot of famous Bourbon releases back when the Morrisons were running it, and Jim McEwen was running the show, and they were doing some really special releases. I think as the industry grew rapidly in the 80s and 90s, even with their clout, it was a bit difficult to keep on top of the growth of the Morrison. So they sold a little bit on to Beam Suntory, and then they sold the rest on in the mid-90s. But Brian Morrison, who was Stanley P. Morrison's son, at that point was the general manager, managing director. And after the sale, he stayed on as the chairman and managing director until 2004. And as happens with people who are quite industrious and busy and like being busy, he lasted about 1 year of retirement before he was coached back out by a chap by the name of Kenny Mackay. So Kenny had been the sales director at Bourbon, and he'd moved on and become involved with the Highland Liqueur Centre, a couple of liqueurs, Columba Cream, which is kind of Scotland's answer to Bailey's, and Brewdar, which is kind of a honey liqueur. So they had this liqueur centre just out of Perth in Scotland, and they weren't happy with the way it was run. So Kenny kind of led the executives in a management buyout. The one issue with that was they didn't have any capital to buy it out. So he rang up his old boss, Brian, said, "Do you want to get involved?" So Brian ended up with 75% of the business. which is a big chunk. And I suppose out of that, they also acquired a bottling line, which is pretty handy. And when you've been in Scotch game as long as the Morrisons, you end up with quite a few thousand casks of whiskey, which I believe Brian was thinking about what his kids are going to do the next generation. So he has 2 kids, Tim and Jamie. So Jamie got involved in this business, which was called at the time Morrison and Mackay, and they started doing some independent bottling under the Carn Mor Celebration of the Cask label. The first thing they bottled in 2008 was a 43-year-old Glen Grant, which I've got 1 bottle from. Bottle 121 out of 121, which is pretty exciting.
Just snuck in with that one.
Yeah. I dream of opening it. I'd love to drink it. So that was 2008. They started the Celebration of the Cask range. So we're going to look at Celebration Cask is generally the higher age statement, single cask, natural cask strength, and the Bunnahabhain we're going to look at later is from the Celebration of the Cask series. And then 2012 they launched the Strictly Limited series, which most of what we're looking at is labelled under the Strictly Limited name. The idea basically being daily sippers. That said, they've keep creeping the alcohol up of what the Strictly Limited are going to be. They were 43, then 46, and now they're 47 and a half. And if you're fortunate enough to be in a position to buy a cask from them and you go, can I pretty please have it in cask strength? They'll do that for you too. So the very last one, Ben Nevis, although it's a Strictly Limited, the cask strength. So as Emma said, their business is kind of growing a little bit. So when they decided to really push things ahead with the Carn Mor brand, they thought, well, we need a warehouse, we need a bottling hall. And so Jamie asked his old dear dad, Dad, do you mind if I borrow one of the many barley farms we have to build our business on? And James said, fine. So they built all this on a farm just out of Perth called Aberagi, which I don't know what it means. It's a horrific word. I hate it. But it's a 300-acre barley farm. And so while they're going about it, they thought, well, while we've already got these people here laying slabs and putting buildings up, we might as well build a distillery on there as well, as you do. So they have Aberagi Distillery on there as well, which started distilling in 2017. It's producing some magnificent spirit. I can say I've not tried anything out of cask, but the spirit itself is quite fruity and rich. They are playing around a little bit with peated runs as well. Everything produced on the site is made from barley they grow on the farm. They only grow Golden Promise on the farm, barley type. And I think they're also just potentially going to look at blending some of the peated runs back into a subtle peat to it. Everything's going to first fill barrels, which is outrageous if you think about the money involved. But I guess, as I say, when you're 5th generation and you've got thousands of casks, including some absurdly priced, Macallans and whatnot that you can trade away, you can afford as many first fill bourbon and sherry casks as you want. So they're taking full advantage of that. So we're expecting, the first bottlings in a couple of years now, which, I keep begging and screaming. I have a secret release, but no, they won't do it. But technically it's a lowland distillery, but it's, it's 5 miles as the bird flies from the Highland Fault line, so just barely lowland. But anyway, I'm sure I've talked too much about that. That's super
exciting. And I think as well, like having those 5 generations clearly gives them a lot of wiggle room and capital, I suppose, to get their hands on stuff that others wouldn't. I mean, I think I've consistently seen Carn Mor being able to bottle anything and everything from the Diageo distilleries that they want. Like, I feel like Linkwood and Glentauchers and, have been some of the constant supply whiskies for Carn Mor.
Absolutely. And I think it's just those relationships as well. That, obviously they go a long way back with the Urquharts, who own Gordon MacPhail. So they have a lot of old Glen Grant casks. Obviously Glen Grant's so important for Gordon MacPhail. My understanding is that these were old swapsies that Brian did with the cart. So he got Glen Grants. I hate to think what he probably gave them at the time. I know when they sold Bowmore, they did retain a lot of the cask. They don't have many left. Let's put it that way. So bit of a shame. But they still bottle some great things. Even a couple of years ago, they released their first, and it's the only to date release of the Family Reserve, which sits above Celebration of a Cask, and it was a 1988 Glengarry, which is a great distillery that's so underrated. And this was a cask which, back when they were running it and owned it and putting their own floor maltings, and it was one of these casks which they took with them when they sold the distillery. And it's just a piece of history. And there's not many families that can have a single cask with that strength of story for that long.
Yeah, it's so cool. I still remember a bottle came across the bar at Whiskey Now years ago now. It was a 29-year-old single cask Macallan, full maturation in proper sherry cask. It wasn't my favorite, but it was just wild that like you could find something like that. And I think they were charging a fraction of what Macallan would charge for it, which was amazing. So
well, I remember that bottle well. I sold it to Whiskey Now. This was before I was actually the official importer, but we lived in Scotland in 2015 and 16, and I was selling Australian wine over there. And I had, when we decided to move back to Australia, I had cases and cases of wine I didn't know what to do with. And my mate had a bottle shop in Glasgow. I said, can I just swap this for some whiskey that's easier to get back to Australia? So that bottle of Macallan cost me 4 cases of Moscato. But I remember that bottling. And they still have, to be honest, they still have these lovely sherried old Macallans. It's just the price tag on bottling them is unbelievable now. So I'm excited to see what they're going to bring out next, to be honest. But I know, and I feel a little bit like Aberaghi is taking a lot of their attention now, which is understandable. It's getting close to launch, and they're starting to really think strongly about it. But I know there's a lot of lovers for Carn Mor, so I'm sure they're going to keep doing some really special things.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I'm loving the tasting notes in the chat on the Linkwood. World lollies on the nose. Rob says he should send me Aberaghi. Aggie?
Aggie? I say Aggie. Yeah.
Let's go with Aggie. The cask to Australia for faster maturation. Steve says great dram, fragrant floral, a bit grassy. He just tried to walk over fast enough to open the Linkwood. Hopefully you made it. Just power. Get your full what is it? Kel Knight from Kath and Kim. Get that
the speed walking. Yeah.
But no, it's beautiful. I think it's probably one of the most delicate, I suppose, Linkwoods I've had recently. There's a lot of like pack and pear syrupiness to it. And it is very floral and definitely getting that sugary aspect of rock candy on the nose. Michael says great entry into the tasting. Absolutely. I think this is the go for it.
I think it just a comment. I mean, and then I know the Morrisons play around with new make spirit that they put in their own cask. They will buy casks from other people and they'll do swaps and all this stuff. But generally, I find that the first bourbon cask releases from them are fantastic. I know they've got a really good relationship with Woodford Reserves, one of my favourite bourbons. I find that the bourbon cask, quality, it's spice without too much. But generally, I love their first bourbon release.
Yeah, it's got all that sweetness without as much of that heavy orange spice that it can often impart. And Linkwood's not a light spirit kind of base either. It does have a bit of body to it, so it's really surprising and really nice to find that it's gentle.
I love it.
I think I could chug back a liter of this by accident on a hot summer's day. So to stick a straw in it, I'm done whiskey.
Fair enough. I mean, it's still 35 degrees over here, so it's going down well.
Is it? You know what?
Yeah.
It's been raining and like 20 something degrees in Melbourne all day. Everyone's telling me how hot it is around the rest of the country. And I'm like, I'm putting jumpers on jumpers. Like, Melbourne.
I'm ready for some Melbourne weather.
Yeah, fair
Over
enough.
the head. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's move on to whiskey number 2. I'm really excited about this one. I'm really curious as well. I don't think I've seen a Glentauchers in Amontillado that I can remember, but Glentauchers is one of my like favorite under the radar distilleries. Glentauchers and Glenlossie for me are the two Diageo Glens that I just feel like don't get enough love. So I'm very excited.
Talking to Shivers.
Hmm?
Glentauchers is
Oh,
Shivers
is
brothers.
it? Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
it was in that
I'm thinking one of the other
Valentine one.
Glens. Yeah. Well, because you got Glentauchers, Milton Duff, and
Glenbergie.
yeah, Glenbergie.
Yeah.
There's too many Glens.
There's a lot of Glen. There's a lot of Glen.
Yeah.
And I do have a soft spot for Glentauchers as well. And I mean, I know Pernod or Shivers, whatever you want to call them, are starting to release a few more things under the Glentauchers name, but yeah, it was a distillery, since they died, back 1897, that was for blending. And I think but these are the things which, someone like me who loves independent bottlers gets really excited about. It's getting to see the whiskies that the blenders look at and try and understand, what the appeal is. But I love the kind of fruitfulness of the Glentauchers. I think it's a really clean style of fruit-forward malty whiskey, which is good. And Amontillado, I mean, we're seeing more and more of them. Well, I know I am. I assume you are too, Emma. But I guess, the whiskey industry used to love Oloroso and PX because it was about colour as much as anything else. Because, we always used to joke that colour sells. It kind of didn't matter what was in there. I mean,
it still does today. I still, chat to people occasionally at events and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, that must be a good whiskey because it's dark." And I'm like, "It could be Coca-Cola in that for all you know, and all I know." Like, I think one of my favorite things I ever saw was there was a Japanese whiskey called, I think it was called Black Scarecrow or Black something or other. And on the label, in like very poor English translation, absolutely adorable, it was like, we put as much caramel coloring as we physically could in this whiskey to make it black. They were like, we want to make a pitch black whiskey. And it was not awful, which is good. But it was like distinctly, they were like, how can we absolutely just demolish this whiskey with E150 caramel coloring? But I'm like, what's the thing? It's I understand it from like wanting to color correct between batches, because not every batch of whiskey for like a core release is going to look the same, making those adjustments. When I saw the Diageo Game of Thrones releases, you line them all next to each other and you're like, they're all the exact same color. That can't be natural. What a coinky dink.
It's amazing.
It's like, what a miracle. But so and it's that thing of, I think, our brains do. I mean, it's like it's looking at a delicious platter of food. Like, there's a reason that there are professional food stylists, like, if it looks, appetizing, people will want it more and your brain will automatically think it's better. But I mean, I think some of you guys might have been there. We had a 30-year-old Linkwood from Whiskey Blues, and it was like, it looked like water. It was so clear and it was delicious. And it's like, the color makes no technical difference. And there's so many incredible sherry casks out there.
It's like those there are those studies where they get professional wine writers to review white wine that's been coloured, and they write it up as a red wine. And obviously on the subconscious level, colour cues a lot of things mentally for us, and I get that. But I still, I suppose it's just a philosophical thing. I don't like any color added. I think that's another reason why I loved it in these. Yeah. And yeah, I get why in mass market and particularly cheap price points they want it to be consistent, but who cares? It's just a color. Yeah. But anyway, on to the Tokaji, the Amontillado, for those, my understanding, and correct me, any master of wine out there, but I believe it's when basically a Fino sherry starts life, the floor yeast dies off. The floor yeast kind of being the yeast which forms a layer on the Fino to kind of protect it from oxidizing, and as that dies off, then it starts to pick up. Well, it starts to oxidize a bit and pick up more nutty characters. So it's kind of a half and half sherry, think about it that way. Yeah, and I think with this one I do see a bit of that kind of nuttiness, but yeah, it's obviously a long way from Oloroso or something like that. And the grape is more of a fresh grape, which I suppose you'd expect.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's kind of that, for me, flavor step between Fino and Oloroso. Like it's dry like a Fino, but it bears towards a sweetness like an Oloroso does as well. Yeah, and even Michael, the dryness on the finish of this whiskey as well. You know, I'm getting a lot of lemonade scones. If you've ever made lemonade scones, they're getting a lot of that kind of malty aspect to it.
I think you need to add some of this into your next batch.
Yeah.
Lemonade
pour
whiskey
this with some jam.
Yeah. Be perfect.
But yeah, Leo's getting white fruits on the palate. Michael's white grapes as well. It does have Leo reckons it's got a short finish. I kind of agree, but I'm kind of not mad at it as well. It's like a brief hello in your palate.
Well, it offers a lot of different flavors, complexity in that point. But yeah, I mean the finish isn't the longest in the world, but tasty, really delicious.
Yeah. I will say as well, when we're talking about the colored wine, it reminded me there's a TV show called Adam Ruins Everything. It's cancelled now, which is devastating, but he did I think you should be able to still find it on YouTube. He did a skit where they talked about how they had professional wine judges, and they presented them with like cheap wine and told them it was expensive, and they came up with all these like fancy flavors, and then they were like, this is an expensive wine, we'll tell you it's cheap, and they're like, oh, you know, it's just dirty and it's sharp and all that, and they colored wine, and it was such a great like double blind experiment, which really just goes to tell you how much we're told and what we see affects
power of persuasion, isn't it?
And even the day, there have been whiskeys where I've tried it at the whiskey show while you guys have seen me there, like getting everyone through with their payments and, you know, helping everyone out and chatting to everyone. I'll taste the whiskey. I'm like, it's fine. It's not that great. And then I go back and I taste it again. I'm like, oh man, this is actually like, I'm really into this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's all about so many different factors, not just, you know, what it looks like, what, you know, all that kind of stuff.
100% right. 100% right. Time and place and all of those things, and preconceived notions, all of that. Yeah. Have a big impact. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd drink everything blind and not know what it was till afterwards. Not that easy.
But, you know, marketing exists, so doesn't really work.
Exactly right. No, exactly.
Yeah. Ian's got a great tasting note, though. Rice sweetness like a Rice Krispie cake. I really like that because it's that like soft cereal sweetness that's not like sugary or saccharine, but it's like, I definitely like that. Rob says, ignore everything we say and go for the $40. I mean, look, there's plenty of great, very affordable whiskeys.
Absolutely.
You know, there's also lots of very terrible, very expensive whiskeys. So, you know, it's just, it's literally just finding what you like. And it's why I personally don't take a lot of stock in how people rate whiskeys online, like, you know, famous writers or whatever. Because I'm like, okay, but I've eaten different things and I like different things. So, you know, you like this one, but I didn't enjoy it. Just pick your own, you know, find what works for you. So, but yeah. Alrighty. Well, we might move on to whiskey number 3. Now, you know, when I first was like typing out this lineup, I was like, this is a lineup of some of my absolute favorite, like, under the radar distilleries. You guys who know me, who've been to quite a few of the tasting, you know how much I love Fettercairn, and look, they sponsored the award I won, so I love them even more. But I liked them before that too. I love them before that, and I'm so insanely excited to go visit them in Scotland, hopefully later this year. But yeah, Fettercairn is one that gets I don't know, a bit of a bad rap. I think it's just, I don't know what it is.
I think it's as we're saying, marketing. Like if you look at the White Mackay Emperador group, you know, they pitched Down More. Some would say not successfully, but they pitched it as their premium brand. Yeah, and Fettercairn's kind of it's been there under the radar, you know, affordable, easy drinking. And they seem to be going down the same path with the way they're rolling out the 10 Williams branding now. And no one knows what the hell they're doing with Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely I get that if it's just like Dalmore, you know, jazz hands and
look at that bottle
and all that. And then they're like, oh, you don't want that Jura, oh, dignified, oh, islandy. And then they're like, you don't want that either. They're like, oh, we have Fettercairn as well.
Fettercairn,
a unicorn on it.
and,
you know.
I mean, let's be honest, White and Mackay, they are about that. I mean, they're still selling unbelievable amounts of the blend into India in particular. It's still quite prevalent in the UK. But I think people have clued in that Fettercairn spirit is special, and it does some really, really good things. And it seems to be suitable to a lot of different cask types, which is, you can't say that of all spirit. So we have one that's had a Tokaji finish, and obviously Tokaji dessert wine from Hungary, but it doesn't have to be. We think of it as a dessert wine. There are dry Tokajis, so Tokaji is more about the region. Steve, I believe it was 18 months in the Tokaji. But again, to me, it's not the so you'll see some cask types labeled Tokaji Zoo, which we know that's when the Tokaji berries had botrytis definitely, and it's going to be luscious and sweet. When it just says Tokaji, the breadth of different wine styles is quite diverse. But certainly there's some sweetness to this, but it's not, overbearing sweet. I'd be quite happy having it for dessert, but I'd be quite happy having it before dinner as well. That's been me.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Dylan, my cigar malt's really good. Yeah, that's fair. Like that's the thing, even with these big brands, there's always like a couple winners. Like from the core range, the Fettercairn 18 is fantastic.
Good value.
Yeah. And I believe all the whiskey produced at all three distilleries are done by their master distiller and blender, Greg Glass, who is a sweetheart and so lovely. So he does great work. But I think it's just, the influence of a couple of other palettes and marketing being like, it needs to be darker, it needs to be sherrier, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. So
Mr. Patterson. Cough.
You said it, not me. You said the name, not me.
But I think you're right, and there's probably we should not record off if we're going to talk about him, but
we'll get Ollie to edit and post.
But no, this is really tasty.
To take out a leaf out of my notes, taste pink. That's fair. Everyone's loving this. I'm super thrilled. I'm super into it. I find that Fettercairn tends to have that kind of funky, fruity aspect to it, similar to the way that like Benriach does. But I don't know why. For me, I like Fettercairn better than Benriach. But Fettercairn to me has always had this undercurrent of like sweet balsamic glaze and like fresh raspberries, and it's that like fruity, salty, savory thing. Michael's got sweet apple and rhubarb crumble on the palate, and like strawberry bubblegum. This is Leo. So good. Oh look, Leo and Ian both said strawberry bubblegum. See, this is what happens. You attend enough tastings together and your brains all start to tick and recognize the same things. I love it.
So the one thing that they do that's unique is they've got irrigation rings on the stills. It's actually like, in Australia would be horrified at the waste of water, but they're basically squirting down the stills to basically slow things down, keep the outside temperature of the stills lower, increase reflux. Whereas I suppose you compare that to Benriach, as you say. Benriach is known for, let's be honest, that sulfury note. Whereas I think, that twist in production that Fettercairn do might be keeping some of that sulfur at bay a little bit. So even though you've got a savouriness, it's not a vegetal sulfuriness which Benriach can have. For good or bad.
Yeah.
Benriach has its place.
It does. I think it's so interesting as well, like that Fettercairn is shockingly like the only Scottish distillery that got to use the unicorn as their brand logo, the national animal of Scotland.
I mean, I'm sure they didn't ask. I'm sure they were just the first people to go. And
they're like, no one else has done this. Yoink.
Should have thought of that. Back in the day, like White Horse, they should have put a little white unicorn. Far out. They missed the ticket.
I think that those days though, in like the 1910s up until like the 1980s, they were like, oh, it's a bit, awkward to have unicorns, to talk about unicorns, because it was that phase of like, oh, we're too educated for that now. But moving into this modern world where it's just like unicorns, hell yeah, love it, into it.
What exactly? Are you trying to say unicorns aren't real? Is that what you're trying to say?
Obviously not.
My daughter will be devastated.
You won't tell her. The
of course not.
All hang out at the North Pole with.
But I think it's a really good example of how well Morrison's can handle finishing. Obviously, the fact that they've got their access to their own warehousing and bottling hall right there, so they can check things every day. It's not a third-party facility where you go, right, I want to put it in this cask for a finish, but then you're getting charged every time you're pulling for samples, so you can't keep a close eye on it. And just, you give it 6 weeks too long and it's stuck. I mean, I'm sure they have screwed up as well, but they've also got the ability to then trade those things away really effectively. And I would say Carn Mor being the one brand, not every release has me jumping up and down and kissing the sky, but I've never found there to be anything disgusting or off or faulty or so that they're a really solid bottler, really solid. Unicorns taste delicious, says Lord Voldemort.
Oh God. I'm sure someone, don't Google it though. I'm sure someone's out there selling unicorn meat. Just don't Google it. But I agree. I've always kind of felt that way about Carn Mor, in the same way that I feel about Cadenhead. So it's like that historic brand, and a lot of great reputation behind it. So that like no matter what, if you buy a bottle, it's going to be at least good. Like it'll never be a bad whiskey. It might not change the world or revolutionize your week, but it's going to be a good whiskey.
I mean, to be fair, that they have revolutionized my week with some of the celebration of the cask bottles over the years. But as I say, with the Strictly range, it's drinkies, absolute drinkers every time, which is what we want.
Yeah, 100%. Ian went back to the Linkwood and got a flavour warmed waffle. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Rob's got a red wine cask Tiananek. Carn Mor. I've got, I think, an Ardmore and a Ruadmore. Peated Taro. I think all peated that I have from Carn Mor. But we might move on to whiskey number 4.
Yep. Let's do it.
Benriach. Now, I asked this of, I can't remember who we did the last bengal tasting with a Benriach with. I think I might have asked this of Graham, but I think that we've been seeing more Benriachs out in the indie bottling market recently. Have you noticed it as well? Or?
Yeah, I have. And obviously it's going to be linked in with the Brown Foreman buyout in 2016. and I know obviously when Billy had it, he was doing a lot of short, limited releases, which Brown-Forman clearly can't be bothered with. So I don't know whether it's just project casts are getting reallocated. I've got no idea. I think what's the production? Is it 2 million litres, Benriach? It's not tiny. It's not massive.
No, I think it was the second largest of their 3 distilleries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. But obviously it's gone under a lot of change as well since 2016. I think it's really exciting to see what Rachel Barry's doing there. Like the range she's lined up now, the official bottling is fantastic. But yeah, it is exciting to see the Indies, because when Billy had it, we never saw it. Yeah, but it is good, and it's always good to see a sherry Benriach. But yeah, I mean, I miss you go.
Oh yeah, no, I think of because you think of those Benriach single cask releases that were probably like Billy Walker's little baby projects that eventually, when Brown-Forman came in, they were like, all right, we've got these weird cask, weirdly old, Benriachs, so we'll just like seed them out to market slowly. And I think now perhaps they're like, well, people really liked that, so maybe we should lay down a couple more, and then those might be the ones finding their way into the IB market, because obviously Dr. Rachel Barry's rebranded and re-released a lot of the age statement, all of the age statement core range Benriach. So it might be the casks that were due to become single cask releases, just they were like, it doesn't fit into our plans anymore.
Absolutely that. Or I mean, we know Rachel's very specific as well as how she's going to put, because she's created core range. We talked about being able to replicate as much as she can. She wants to continue these releases. So if there was the odd cast that was a bit of an outlier, then I'm sure she was more than willing to kick it out. I'm sure she got paid very well to kick it out. But Rob's asked, can you explain the significance of a sherry butt, please? It disappeared. Oh, there is. Yeah, there is a joke there. So a sherry butt, I believe it's 550 litre ex-sherry cask. So the larger, is it 500? Not 500. They're a large cask type, but the fact they've declared it as sherry rather than Oloroso or PX may indicate that it's a second fill. But they probably still wanted to declare sherry because it's picked up a lot of colour, a heck of a lot of colour. But it may have had something in it for a quick finish beforehand, and then had a full maturation. This Benriach. There's a few reasons why it might be like not the most obvious thing exactly what the cask was. All we know that it was a butt.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, butt just refers to the size. Sometimes you get them adding the size on. So like later with the Ben Nevis, a hogshead is another size. But like some people say, it's a sherry cask. Some people say it's a sherry butt. I think it's just personal preference. And some, especially like ex-bourbon casks, are a lot of casks in America are under the Queen Anne Imperial system sizing, so it doesn't line up with sizes in the UK, which is, I can't remember what the new modern sizing system is that they brought in like the mid to late 1900s. But so like for a lot of it, it's just like, well, it's a bourbon cask because it's a weird, based on a gallon system of measurement, and it might even be that those bourbon casks were then filled with sherry, like those bourbon casks went to Spain or Portugal, and then they had sherry in them, and then they made their way to Scotland. So it's like, it's not technically a butt or a Gorda or a port pipe or a this or that. So yeah, that might just be kind of how it comes down.
The other, so Rob's asked as well, how big's a quarter cask? And Steve's, 200 litre barrels, 50 litre quarter. From my understanding, yeah, there's going to be a huge variation in quarter casks. I mean, even we always say, well, this kind of cask means this size, but when you actually, we're talking about something that's been made by hand, from an organic material, so there's huge volume discrepancy. You might get a 200 litre barrel made and it might hold 170 litres, and you might get another 200 litre barrel made and might hold 240 litres. So there's big variations there. And I don't, with quarter casks, Rob and Steve, correct me, but I don't know that. I think a sherry butt broken down into quarters is still going to be a quarter cask, as is a bourbon cask. So it could be anywhere from 25 up to 150 litres, I think, theoretically. There's big variation.
Yeah, I think from what I remember reading, particularly in relation to the Lefroy quarter cask, I think a lot of their sizes are around 80 litres for a quarter cask. But yeah, like Simon said, it's what cask size are you quartering? And then you have octave quarter casks, where it's like a mishmash of different staves within the one barrel. And yeah, and even there's other sizes like rundlets and kindlets and firkins and all this kind of stuff that nobody ever uses anymore. Even Gorda, which is like the largest size, we rarely ever see it. So yeah, and obviously, yeah, there is variation in production when you're making these casks and stuff. So I imagine realistically it's more on hoop and rung size than anything else. Most likely. Well,
just quickly on the Benriach, I hope you guys are enjoying it. I find it an intriguing one. So it's not like an obvious. It's not a lot of like Rancio, leather, those kind of notes, but it's definitely a lot of chocolate. It's got a bit of cinnamon spice to it. So it does say sherry, but it's not like screaming Oloroso. It has me wondering whether that's why they kept the word Oloroso off of it. But yeah, I find it really intriguing. I think I've come out of the wine industry, so I kind of, whenever I see any sherry, I look for the winey notes. I think the wine notes in this are a bit obscure. They're very almost like raisiny, almost, well, actually scrubbed that, almost like pruny notes, where like the wine is really oxidized and cooked that fruit character quite well. But I think it's a really interesting.
Yeah, I instantly on the nose, I was hit with some absolutely delicious delicious Oloroso sherry notes. Also, Rob, the dad joke in the comment is solid. I don't know if you want wine notes. But yeah, no, it was so much viscous Oloroso sherry on the nose, but then getting into the palate, I agree with somebody said it, Steve, a little bit of burnt toffee, like a little bit of caramel at the base of the pan kind of thing. But definitely very rich. Leah reckons it's a refill sherry, but I think so, but I think it must have been I think so too, but I think it still had a lot of sugar to give, because there's a definite sweetness, but it's not overpowering or overwhelming like a first fill might be. Yeah. I'll be curious to see what everyone's favorite is at the end of the tasting as well.
We're coming up to my two favorites. So.
I know. Well, that's what I was thinking. So whiskey number 5, which I was so excited to see again. Gosh, I can't remember the last time I tasted this, but
I think I shoved a glass in your hand from Sydney.
Yeah, I think it must have been somewhere up in Sydney. Oh, maybe at the Oak Barrel Fair or in Adelaide at the last show. But it was just like, try this. This is the Australian exclusive, right?
Yeah. So this is but it's the only celebration cask one that we're going to look at. So again, probably reflective of the age of it. I mean, 17-year-olds might be oldest with the understanding. definitely high quality single cask, at natural cask strength. So, Leo, just to quickly answer your question, Emma and I had a brief exchange about the tasting order of this and the Ben Nevis. The Ben Nevis to me is one of the most heated Ben Nevises I've seen, but which is why we kind of stuck it this way. And I think the age of the Bunnahabhain as well just gives it a gentler approach than the Ben Nevis. But anyway, so as all great things do, the start of this whiskey was so myself and Marcus, who has Haynes & Co here in Adelaide, which he also has his whiskey bar upstairs called Ralph Lewis Frederick, having way too many drinks, and then Kelvin from the Listen Whiskey Co rang up and we had a chat. And when you've had too many drinks, you always think the best idea is to do a collab. This happens all the time. So I was tasked with, Marcus and Kelvin are lovers of Morrison's and Carn Mor as well. So I was tasked with engaging Morrison's to see what casks they had available. Are they happy for us to do it? And they gave us quite a few samples, which was really generous of them. Some of them were, there was actually a really good Auchentoshan in there, which we ummed and ahed about for a long time, but in the end, it said Auchentoshan on the label, so we couldn't do it. It's just one of those things. And likewise, the final two we were looking at were this and a Tokaji, and I would have been equally happy with either of them. But in the end, we thought there was something really special about Bunnahabhain. So 17 and a half years, fully in a single sherry butt. Now, full transparency, in the end, we were like, we really, really, really like that whiskey. We can't take a whole sherry butt. It's going to bankrupt us. So we ended up splitting the cask between Australia and Canada, which we're okay with that. So if you're ever in Canada and you see a celebration cask Bunnahabhain bottled by Rare, what do they call it? Rare Dram, it's the same. But it's been a heck of a lot of fun. So the idea was just to bring something to market that's delicious. And I think to our money, we've ticked that. But
yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And I mean, Leah got it right. Pink and cherry is a perfect marriage. Steve says it's poetry in glass. Rob, the bottle probably is a lot cheaper over in Canada.
Blame Albo, mate.
No, I blame the ATO. I
think
they're just in cashing those big checks.
I look at the UK whenever they have difficulties, they seem very happy to freeze alcohol duty, but our government never want to do it, which just annoys me because it'd be handy at the moment. But look, Bunnahabhain genuinely has been one of my favourite distilleries for a long time. So I was really, really chuffed to be able to do this one. And it has been really, really well received. It's great.
Yeah, it's so good. I get a lot of those like spicy, sweet lychee Thai glazes, like that on burnt sardines, because it's got that sweetness to it, but then a leatheriness. Ian says it's on the palate, sooty, sweet, and a bit of fudge, 100%. I am devastated that there won't be as much Bunnahabhain Moine coming out in the next forever potentially. They're pulling back on the production of it, so which is devastating.
Is that a Port Ellen impact? Is that Diageo saying?
No, it's just from sales. The Moine just doesn't perform as well as their regular unpeated stuff. Well,
I'm doing my bit.
Yeah, I know, right? So what is that? Starship Troopers? I'm doing my bit. Buy more they're still doing it, but predominantly for like distillery exclusive hand fill bottlings and stuff like that. I know I picked up a 19-year-old bourbon cask Bunnahabhain Moine when I was there last year, so hopefully we get to see that in tasting sometime soon because I really want to try it. that was one where I was pretty much like, Ollie, I'm buying this. The company is buying this. We have to have it. It's too good to pass up. So, but yes, Steve's wondering how many bottles.
So basically the way we did it is we had 240 bottles, so we split up a third each. So Haynes and Co took 80, Elysian took 80, and I took 80. Nice way of doing it. And yeah, they weren't the cheapest things to do, but yeah, so glad we did it. Really glad. What I will say, Emma, about Bunny, from what I understand, is while they're reducing peat, they're not making a quick decision to drop it off the radar. It's every year they're slowly reducing it, which is a nice way to do it.
But what's the production capacity is much lower, and you won't see like already you haven't seen as much checkered gar coming out to other export markets. And what was the other one?
Destroyed, what was it called? The one that started with an S. Yeah,
I don't think the Stewardare was peated though.
No,
I have to check. I haven't seen a bottle in forever, so
I don't think it was good. I think you'd be happy to see the back of that one. Yeah.
But no, not one of the best Bunnas out there. Definitely a mixer, but
as I say, one of my
futures Cask was a Moine. Yes, it is a Moine. We were like, yep, peated, please. We would like that.
We have to be very patient for that, Leon.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We think about whiskey and we love it so much, but when you go there to the distilleries, I look at those people and I think, you're laying down whiskey that you will never see bottled in your working time, potentially in your lifetime. Like, that's crazy. It's wild that there's such patience and such forward thinking in the industry as well, which is cool.
But I think it highlights, there's distilleries where I think they're so passionate about it that, that they want to be laying down the best spirit for the future generations. But then I think there's other distilleries where it's just a job. It's about trying to identify which of those, which are the ones where, mistakes. But I think Bunny is one of those ones where, particularly the current staff or employees, whatever you want to call it, I think they're all very passionate about it. Which, I don't even think you can say that about all the island distilleries, so that's great. Carn Mor.
Yes, the Carn Mor was probably the other heavily peated one. Yeah, so good. I think that was a travel retail exclusive as well, or maybe that's the Benriach.
There was three travel exclusives. One was peated, but I can't remember which one it was. A Ragnar Green's the only one that resonated. Travel exclusive, I really like.
Absolutely loving this. I have a sneaking suspicion I know the clear winner of the poll tonight, but we shall press on with the final whiskey and see what people think.
So Ben Nevis, this Spier and Right, Spier and Right, whatever you want to call me, I don't care. Exclusive.
Is it Spier or is it Spire? Have I been saying it wrong for like 5 years?
I think it's Spier, but my grandfather went by Spire, but none of us know why. Certainly when we're overseas, 99 over 100 times you get Spier, and I think we'll go with that. Yeah. But yeah, so the Ben Nevis. So this was an interesting one. So obviously, Graham and I opened the shop, and it was always part of the plan to do our own exclusive releases where possible. And I knew Morrison's. So basically, they did a couple small fill contracts with Ben Nevis. So they did 2014. I think it was 15 casks of unpeated, and then in 2015 they did 15 casks of peated. And the first 2015 peated release I saw, it would have been hit Australia in 2019. It was a 4-year-old. It was so young, but it was brilliant and gorgeous. So when we got the list from Morrison's about what we could get our hands on, we obviously asked for quite a few samples, but the Ben Nevis was always going to be on the list of samples. And yeah, this one's just impressed us from the off. I mean, there are times when we had some debates, because particularly the first sample we saw from this cask was like 61.5%. And we're like, no, this is too hot, too big. But second sample, we're like, actually, this is coming around quite nicely. Seems good. But we love Ben Nevis again for that kind of savoury funk that they can get. I hate the word funk, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say by these kind of obscure notes. And then you can buy like a really great Oloroso piece of wood with it, where you're adding some of that rich rancio character to it as well.
Yeah, I always get
Thank
that
you.
Ben Nevis funk. I always describe it as roast chicken skins. Like,
Mm,
you know, when you get a really nice roast chook and
absolutely.
it's that savory, fatty, but sweet at the same time.
Yeah.
Skin, like that was my favorite part of the roast chicken growing up.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I always kind of get that distinct mix. I get it from Springbank a little bit as well, but Springbank tends to like lemon chicken, like really good Chinese restaurant lemon chicken. But yeah, no, Ben Nevis has always kind of had that, either if it's peated and got that peat or got that savoriness, it's roast chicken skins. Otherwise, it's caramel popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. And I mean, obviously we wanted something which was a stand up and notice me dram. Yeah, I mean, as a first foray into a spirit and rye bottling. I think the worst thing we could have done would be to release like a refill Glen Grant or something. Yeah, I think we wanted something that was really like, whoa, okay. And I think this ticked all of our boxes. And it's whiskey we both absolutely love and do drink probably way too much of. So it landed in December. I think we had 208 bottles. I think we've got 80 left. So we've probably drunk most of that, to be honest. We just love it, absolutely love it.
Quality controlled testing, right?
Yeah. It's got to be done. But you can see it's got like a silkier texture, I think, as well to that bunny, which I just love against that richness from that cask.
Leo saying he wasn't aware that Ben Nevis had done peated runs so recently. It's kind of under the Nika whiskey ownership that they've done a bit more peated, do you think?
Yeah, but they still do bugger all. From my understanding, it's still like 2.5% of their total production's peated. That's it. Like we're talking about Bunny cutting back. Well, Bunny's still going to be probably 25% this year. 2.5% is airfoil. So yeah, 50,000 litres, I think, was the 2024 program, which is nothing. So,
yeah. In the scope of Australian distillery, that's a whole distillery annual output times 2. But Scotland, it's small fry. But
well, particularly when they have an official peated release, like they call the
McDonald's
release. Yeah. Well, there's completing that as well. Yeah, for the black label, they call release. Yeah, right. And that must be a tiny release when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Michael and Leo debating in the comments which if we should have swapped the order around and kept the order as is between these. I agree that like the funk on this, but then the peat was a lot stronger on the other one. For certain. But it's delicious. Yeah. Great pick. And Steve says as well. So we have a little discount for everyone here in the virtual tasting tonight. I will post a link and then I'll run the poll so that we can figure out what the favorite of the night was. Though we probably don't need to ask, but we do anyway, just in case. So we've got, I think, Simon, you sent us stock of all 6 of these.
No, but I have stock of all 6 of these to send you.
Okay. All right, sweet.
Oh, yeah.
We've got, they'll be up on the website, but we have 10% off the Carn Mor whiskies available tonight. The link will automatically add the code. Otherwise, you can use the code Carn Mor 10 if you purchase a bottle. Otherwise, I will run the poll. And as per usual, you can pick 2 of your top whiskies of the night. So I'm hoping that should show some more interesting results. Now, Simon, you and I can see it. It's like the most exciting, like greyhound racing, you know.
How come I can't vote? Come on.
I know. I can't vote either. I think we I think in one poll Ollie accidentally discounted me and I was able to vote, and I was like, yes.
Yes.
Sneak in with a vote for my fave. But yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the results of this are. Yeah, hosts sadly can't vote on the Zoom. But if you guys have any other questions about Carn Mor or any of the whiskies tonight, pop them in the chat. Leo's already probably jumped on a bottle of the Ben Nevis. I haven't even looked at the prices, but on taste alone, I'm half tempted to shake you down for a bottle when I get to Adelaide, Simon.
Well, if that's what is required to get you to come visit.
Yeah, obviously. Bribes. Whiskey bribes. We'll always be bribed with whiskey. But yeah. Oh, everyone has voted. Drum roll, please. Unsurprised by the Bunnahabhain and absolutely thrilled to see the Ben Nevis pick up equal with the Bunnahabhain.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. The Benriach did great in second dish.
Yeah.
No love for the Glentauchers, but that's okay. I understand.
That's all right. Poor Glentauchers. It's all right. More for me.
Yeah, 100%. So, but that officially ends the tasting for tonight. Thank you so much, Simon. I know that you've had a busy bar full of a regular meetup group in the background. So thank you for taking the time away to chat with us more about Carn Mor and share these drams with us. I know not all of our hosts can enjoy drinks at the same time as we can, so it's
exactly. No, it's been a pleasure. No, thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to seeing you in Adelaide shortly.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Simon, if you wanted to hang around for a little bit longer, but everyone, thank you so much for joining. We will see you at the next tasting, or hopefully if you're in Adelaide at the Adelaide show. But have a wonderful evening. Take care, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thanks very much, everyone.
That Nevis is fantastic.
I know. I don't need to drive home for a while.